Hello, sexy people, and welcome back. You are going to love today's interview. We have with us Carl. Carl has lost over 65 pounds and gone from 21 stone, reversed pre-diabetes, and interestingly, lost 2 sizes on his feet. I know, crazy. And this is part of a series of UK carnivores who are transforming their lives with a primal or a carnivore diet. And welcome to Happy Sexy Health, where our mission is to help people reverse type 2 diabetes and all of the chronic diseases that go along with it. Welcome to the show, Carl.
Hi, Stephanie. It's good to be here.
Carl from the Primal Lifestyle. So, Carl, tell us where about in the country that you are based.
I live in Ipswich in Suffolk on the east coast of England, about an hour from London.
Fabulous. And the second thing we want to know is, Carl, how did you get going on carnivore?
Okay, well, in my youth, I was quite senior within the judo circles. I did a lot of judo. I played rugby, and I was quite a sporty guy. As obviously you then evolve, you get into a family, or married, children. I carried on eating like I was doing the sports, and I wasn't doing the sport. So over a period of about 20 years, I went from judo to sumo, really. When I got to my late 40s, I was clearly bordering on obese and things like that. I then tried to do various things. I joined gyms, did that for a few months, gave up. Tried Slimmers World, which worked to a level of degree, but I couldn't maintain it. I tried various different diets. I went vegan for nearly 6 months. I managed to lose some weight, but I was constantly hungry and I was not, people that get on with veganism, great, but it just didn't suit me. So I tried and I kept trying and my weight was yo-yoing up and down. I would go from 15, 16 stone up to 20 plus stone, then come down a few stone, go back up. And it was like a constant cycle for me. And then by some chance, I saw the Joe Rogan interview of Jordan Peterson. And he was talking about his change of diet that dealt with his mental health issues and that the fact he'd lost weight. And I sat there and I thought, well, that's a bit novel. So again, the inquisitive side of me then went on to YouTube and various other socials to sort of investigate a bit more about it. Came across Ken Baker and God, I can't think of the names now. Ken Baker, Dr. Kiltz, these various characters. Homestead How, Kerry from Homestead How again, and I could see the similarities of his story to mine. So just to put that in the picture, I was pre-diabetic. They wanted me to go on to statins. They wanted me to consider taking tablet form of insulin. My blood pressure was getting close to being dangerously high. I was having all sorts of issues. So if I suddenly watched football when I jumped up, I had really bad dizzy spells. I'd go for a walk, I would be struggling. I'd be really struggling breathing wise. I was having sleep apnea. They were looking at me potentially having some tests to see if I needed a CPAP machine. I was then discovered I had skin cancer. So I was in a very low place. I was depressed, stressed, obese. My health was in bits, to be fair. So out of desperation, I thought I'd give it a go. And I thought I'd do it for a month or so. Totally shocked by the improvements within the first few weeks, let alone the months. My wife was over the moon because I stopped snoring within 2 weeks, which again then improved my sleep. And then I found through my improved sleep, I was sleeping better. I was waking up earlier. I was having more energy. The weight just fell off me. So I went from 30 days on it to 90 days. And last weekend, I celebrated 2 years on the carnivore lifestyle.
What a story. What a story. I love that. But you get all these benefits, but what was it like to actually change? Because give us a picture of what your diet looked like before, what the transition was like.
Okay, well, prior to me owning the carnivore diet, it was all about timing for me because I owned 7 different businesses in the logistics and freight area. So I traveled a hell of a lot. So I was eating airplane food, I was eating hotel food, I was having to wine and dine clients on a regular basis. So I was having quite luxurious meals, very high carb, very high fat. When I was traveling, I was snacking all the time, eating processed foods. A packet of Jaffa cakes could evaporate in about 70 seconds. I could eat an entire box of them. Crisps, Pringles, all that sort of stuff, all the junk that you fill up with, I was snacking really, really badly. I love steak, but I was having steak and all the trimmings, the chips and all the various bits and pieces, fish and chips. God, I couldn't go a Friday without fish and chips. So that was, what you would say, a very standard Western diet. Wasn't a big fan of McDonald's, more of a Burger King man. But when I had Burger King, I'd have the double Whopper with all the trimmings that came with that. KFC, I used to eat buckets of KFC. So you can get the idea of the diet. Nothing too outrageous, but again, curries was another one. I'd regularly have me up with mates and have curries. So everything I was eating was a mixture of everything: fat, processed, sugars, the lot. Was a bit of a chocoholic. Would get a big dairy milk and could polish that off in a day quite comfortably. My children were amazed once when we had a tub of celebrations. They had one each, and I finished the entire tub off in the space of about 8 hours. So again, big snacker, big, eater, terrible. So obviously, when I decided to go carnivore, I thought I've got to be serious and committed to it. So I went whole hog. And the one thing I did learn, I'm sure you may ask me later, is don't fly into it like I did. I literally overnight went full carnivore. You really need a period of time of transition. So I immediately went into, without being too graphic, diarrhea, feeling tired and real bad headache, really lethargic. The first 2 days, I felt really lethargic. Finding out subsequently that's called keto flu, where your body's going through transition. Had I known that, I would have probably spread it over 3 weeks from start to finish. But no, I went 24 hours and straight into it. Once I'd got over that, and I suddenly started finding, actually, it's not so bad. Within that first 4 days or so, that I started to feel more energy. And then as the week progressed, so I think I've used the expression before with other people. At 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was like Tigger. I was getting out of bed and I had so much energy. And we had a puppy then, and my poor puppy was like, oh God, here he comes again. I'm going for another walk, try and hide somewhere. And that was really, and then I would say within the second week or so, your thought patterns are so clearer. It's like that fog that you have where you're thinking, oh, what was that? It just seems so much sharper. And I think that helps motivate you. And at the time, I was checking my weight probably every 3 days. And I was like, these scales can't be right. I've lost another 6 pounds or 7 pounds in a matter of days. No, not weeks, in days. But that just shows you how much fluid I had, how much inflammation I had, how much excess fat. I used to have a gut that I could put a pint of beer or Guinness on, and it would stay on the top of my stomach. Like, it used to be a little bit of a party trick I did. You'll find I'm a bit of an idiot, really, and a bit of a clown. But I could do that. And when I think about it now, the amount of internal fat around my organs was terrible. I've not got a flat stomach, but I'm pretty close to having a flat stomach now. And, gone are the pint hanging.
Very handy, really, isn't it? And you giving up the booze as well?
Yeah, pretty much. When I first went, I made a commitment I would drink quite comfortably 5 to 6 pints of Guinness and then go on to shorts with my mates and whatever. Or if we're having a curry, I'd drink 5 or 6 pints of whichever lager they had there. So I used to drink a lot. So for the first probably 2.5, 3 months, I literally gave up alcohol. I basically had either soda water or bottled water would be all I would drink. And that helped. The unfortunate thing for me, about 6 months in, my football team, Ipswich Town Football Club, got promoted to the Premier League. And I had a weekend where I actually celebrated, regretted it, not for hangover purposes, but for what it did for my stomach for the next 3 days. So I then decided that once I'd got down to my target weight, and actually went past my target weight, to be fair, I decided to go more maintenance. So every now and then, and when I say every now and then, it might be once a month or once every other month, I would allow myself to have a pint of Guinness or something, because I didn't want to be this sort of, felt like I couldn't have anything, but my own mindset change enabled me to be able to have it and leave it. So it was a case of, do I really want it? So I kind of don't want to drink, as opposed to when I felt like I was depriving myself from drinking.
Yeah, it's interesting how those mental shifts come in. And a lot of people say that when they go carnivore, because it's a very low sugar diet, and there's a lot of sugar and alcohol as well, that it actually makes it easier with giving up the alcohol as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I did an interview with our mutual friend George, and he talked about the gin Ricky. And if I fancy a drink any time now, which is very rare now, I'll have a gin Ricky rather than opposed to a pint, because it's much lower in carbs. It's almost zero carb.
So I'm getting gin. What's the Ricky?
So gin, it's just gin, soda water, and a squeeze of fresh lime. Just a
Oh,
squeeze
wow.
of fresh lime.
You know.
And it's, gin and tonic was something I'd start an evening with. So if I have a gin Ricky, that ticks the box for me. But one of the tips I can say to people, if you don't want to go back into the drinking side of it, offer to drive. Be the designated driver. And therefore, you're not socially out on a limb because everyone respects your driving. So that's one way I got around it. I used to drive quite regularly and pick my mates up, so they were more than happy to have a taxi driver.
Yeah. Well, back in the days when I liked a glass of wine or two, or Prosecco, champagne, any. I couldn't
But they're
imagine
high in sugar, aren't they? Anything that bubbles, it's sugar that makes the bubbles.
all of it, the wines as well, high in sugar. But I used to like the dry ones, but it's still sugar. I couldn't imagine going to an event, a function, or even a dinner without having a glass of wine. So changed days now. I don't even think about it. And in fact, I find giving up the wine much easier, surprisingly, than the food. Like the cravings for the wine haven't really stuck around, whereas I do sometimes get those thoughts about the food.
When I say I was a big drinker, I didn't drink every day, but when I did drink, I drank a lot. So I was never in the taste for alcohol. But obviously, when you're socializing, it's more, unfortunately, it's more suitable that you join in. Where now it doesn't bother me at all. Now, and I'd meet up with my football mates, and I'll sit there with a bottle of sparkling water, and they'll all have their beers. And so be it. It doesn't change the enjoyment I have around them.
Exactly. That's a bit of a mindset as well, that you're not going to the event for the food or for the drink. And I was like, am I not? You go for the people, and that made a huge.
And I also think at the time I was quite stressed, though alcohol was a way of relieving the stress. And as I'm no longer stressed, I don't have that desire to have that relaxant. So I think that also helps.
And of course, that high level of sugar in your body the whole time, that high blood sugar, it does create that inflammation and physiological stress within your body and mental stress within your mind.
Very true.
Talking about the importance of people, going there for the people and community on this carnivore journey, it can be quite lonely. And so it can be useful to have a community. And you have created something, Carl, which is coming up. And I would love you to tell us a little bit more about the Great British Meetup.
Yeah, when I first got on the carnivore journey and you do your research, you come across various people. And I come across Paul, the UK carnivore, and then I found a few others, and George being one of them. And within a short period of time, there was a small WhatsApp group, which I managed to join. And they're all good friends. I haven't met them all, but I've met most of them. And that sort of community spirit. And then George kind of saw what the US were doing with meetups and kind of suggested, why don't we look into it? So I'll give George full credit for the initial idea. And Muggins here then kind of sort of talked himself into it and heavily involved with it. Small team, there's Sarah, the healthy carnivore. There's Carnivore for Life 66, Alec and George. And then there's Lauren, Farmer's Wife, Farmer's Life, or whatever it is. So between us, we set up a small committee to set it up. And we're looking forward to it now, the 2nd of August, down at Sourdown Farm, which is not a few miles from Glastonbury. So we always say it's near Glastonbury so people can locate to it. But we've put some tickets on sale. We've got some amazing speakers, including your good self. And we've got some real good headline speakers as well. And we've got a massive hog roast, and we've got beef roasts, and we've got lamb roasts coming. It's really for people that are either involved in carnivore, interested in carnivore, or just carnivore curious. I think there's a licensed bar and all that there, which, I'm still drinking my soda water. And it's really an opportunity for us to be as a community to get together and share stories and build friends and networks, because as you say, it can be lonely. The classic example was when I was obese and I had a BMI of 33. No one talked about my health whatsoever. Then suddenly I shifted a phenomenal amount of weight. And then suddenly everyone became a doctor and they were worried about what I was eating and what was going on. I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm healthier now than I was a year ago. And you're now worried about that. And I think a lot of carnivores get caught into that where people know better and they look at the old style of medical advice and all that. And again, there is certain medical advice is great, but you've got to make your own decisions on some occasions. And getting into that community, I think will help a lot of people that are either on it or struggling with it to join that community and find a way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to go to events, but particularly this event because it's not like the typical carnivore conference or keto conference where it's mainly speakers and you just get a chance to talk to other people in the breaks. We've actually got a few speakers in the morning up until lunchtime, and then we've got lunch and lots of social time in this beautiful, beautiful setting with the beautiful people, other people who are on the same journey. And for that, it's going to be very, very, it's very valuable because that's where you learn a lot as well, just speaking to people about their experiences.
Yeah, it was definitely the whole idea of it was to make it community and friendly as opposed to lecturing and all that. We have got some speakers, we have got some really good little projects that will be shared on the day, etc. But it is all about community and socializing. That's why we didn't want to go too heavy on that.
They're phenomenal, aren't they? The headline speakers, Richard Smith from Keto Pro
Yeah,
and Stephen Thomas, the UK Carnivore, very, very knowledgeable. And also, they've both got incredible personal stories of health transformation as well.
absolutely. Obviously, you were at the London event as I was, and they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant at what they had to do. And I really want the bigger community to be able to see what they have to say.
And the other thing we need to say about this event is all of the proceeds from it will be going to the Healing Humanity charity to support the work of the film and the documentaries to spread the word about carnivore.
Absolutely. Well, it's a non-profit event. We are charging for the tickets. So if there's any overspill on the funds, we're going to push that into that one because I don't want to pay any more taxes than I already do. So it was definitely set up as a non-profit. It's not to do with us earning anything from it. We're all volunteers on this, but we needed a cause that would be suitable in line with what people, visitors, colours would want. And we felt that the Healing Humanity was the right direction to go into. And Kerry's brilliant. We'll even have some messages from the likes of Kerry and Dr. Kiltz on the day as well.
Yeah, that's Kerry Mann from Healing Humanity.
Yeah.
And the documentary is coming out any day.
It's very soon. There's one already out they're involved in, which is called Animal. Apparently released in America, and I think it's coming over here in the next 2 weeks as well on Apple and Prime, I believe. And then obviously Kerry's one, they've finished all the filming of the Healing Humanity one. From what I've understand, they're trying to get it out this year, but obviously it's getting all the edits done and all making it, pristine and all that. So that will be out not long after.
That's brilliant. I'm glad we got to talk about that. And I'll put the links in below so that people can get to the events and get their tickets, because I know that the tickets are only going to be on sale till the 19th of July.
Yeah, that's because obviously we're having the butchers having to and the people that are doing the catering need to hang the meat and all that to get it to the quality that we need. So they need a 2-week period. So we're having to cut the ticket sales off on the 19th to enable them a sufficient time to get the right volume of meat, because we want to make sure that everyone can eat as much as they like for that ticket and make sure that everyone is well catered for. So we have to cut off the numbers to make that work. And that's why we had to do it on the 19th.
So Carl, speaking of foods, you used to pack away quite a bit from the sounds of it. And now you've gone carnivore. You've had these massive health transformations. What are you eating now on a day-to-day?
Okay, so most days I'm OMAD, so I'm one meal a day. So I very, very rarely have breakfast. I think the earliest I ever tend to feel even slightly hungry is between 11 and 12. If I do that, sometimes if I'm not feeling particularly hungry, I'll do myself what I call millionaire scrambled eggs. So that's 4 to 5 eggs scrambled up with a little bit of full fat cream. Sometimes I cook a little bit of bacon in the air fryer, cut up and mix it in. and I'll have that, and that will pretty much do me all day. I may have the odd boiled egg in the evening if I'm feeling a bit peckish. If in the day where I'm feeling proper hungry, then I tend to do a ribeye or even sometimes 2 ribeye steaks. If I can, and I've done the preparations right, I'll eat them raw. If I haven't done the preparations right, then I will do a slight sear on them and then eat them, what I would say, rare rather than raw. And when I say preparation, if I've got the time, I tend to freeze my steaks for 2 or 3 days to kill off all the pathogens. And then when I will defrost them and then eat them raw then. So if I haven't already done that, I will tend to cook them in the pan or on a grill or whatever just to make sure the pathogens on the surface are dealt with, because that's where they will be, on the surface of the meat. And then I would say that's the vast majority. Occasionally I'll bring some fish in. I'll add some fish to it. I tend to do tuna or mackerel. I tend to do them mackerel I tend to have as they come, but things like tuna and that I'll cook in butter and then have a nice big tuna steak, probably mixing with some eggs as well or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have. I always have boiled eggs in the fridge as my snack. I also have brown butter I use. So if I ever get that feel and I want that taste of caramel, I'll pop a couple of brown, and I just got them in ice cube trays, which I can just pop out and I'll pop them in like a sweet. But that's very rare now that I even go to them. I probably need to check what's the age they're in my freezer now, to be honest. And that's it. That's pretty much what I have. Lots of water, obviously salt on everything, lots of butter. I go through lots of butter. I probably go through a block within 3 days.
Right. I suppose if your former self had been here listening to this interview, it'd be like, what? You're not having what? No Jaffa cake? What? No toast? No
Right.
cereals? No fish and chips? No
I'll tell
curry?
you a day that I used to have 2 or 3 years ago. When I had my logistics company, which I had a warehouse, I'd have something to eat when I first got up, some Weetabix or whatever. I'd go into the office for about 8 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier. The bacon roll man would come round just before 9. So all the staff and the warehouse staff again, I'd get a bacon roll. If I missed him, I got there late, I'd go to Greg's and get a bacon roll anyhow. So I'd have that both before 9. I normally had some sort of snack. If someone hadn't got sweets or biscuits in the office, I'd have some sort of snack about 11. I then tend to do myself like a jack potato with cheese and beans and right at lunchtime. I'd probably be hungry again between 3 and 4, so I'd go and find something to snack on there. I'd go home and have a full-blown meal in the evening, and probably snack again in the evening watching telly before I fell asleep watching telly. That would be a normal day for me.
Yes, yeah, totally. And now you're eating 1 time a day. So just tell me, Carl, when you first transitioned over, you stopped the Jaffa cake the night before. The next day, you're full carnivore. I'm guessing you were having more than 1 meal when you originally first started.
Yep, I was working on the print. I think Sean Baker did a podcast about it. So I sort of followed his line. So I started off eating probably 2 or 3 steaks in a period of about 2 hours. I wanted to make sure I was full of meat rather than anything else. And you can only do that for a couple of days, but then you start noticing. So I was probably eating 2, maybe 3 times a day at very first, because then it was just meat, eggs, like a B and E, basically what I was doing. But bacon, was it bacon, beef and eggs with a bit of bacon, beef, butter and eggs. I think that's pretty much what my diet was. And every time I felt even the slightest bit hungry, I was eating. Within about a week or so, I was finding, well, I don't really want that. So I was kind of skipping meals without even realizing it. And then I would say by the first month or so, I was down to 1 and probably a mini meal as well, or actually skipping it. I even found a couple of times I hadn't eaten all that day and hadn't even realized it. It naturally comes when you skip it because you're so full. And then when you are hungry, you eat. And when you're not hungry, you don't. So you don't work to this regimental 3 meals a day. It just goes out the window.
Yeah, or just constantly being hungry. You know, what's around? What can I have? Oh, look, so-and-so's got this. You're just not interested. And for those of us who had all that food noise, as they now call it, all that chatter in the brain all the time about what you're eating next, what's around, and what you should be eating or not eating.
And this is what I have a lot of as well, bone broth. I have bone broth with a little bit of salt in it.
Yeah.
And that replaced all my teas and coffees. I do occasionally have what I call a bullet coffee, Not often, but I'll put some butter in a good quality coffee. But most of the time I have bone broth, which is basically a bit of bone broth diluted with hot water, and I add salt to it.
Yeah, no, that's really good because for everything, because all the fat, all the connective tissue is so good for your skin and health, everything that needs renewing and repairing. And for our hormones, of course, as we age, we definitely need that.
Well, the skin bit was important for me because I mentioned before I'd got skin cancer, and it turned out it was quite a nasty melanoma. I'll get as close to camera there. You wouldn't know this, but I had 15 stitches in my forehead. There's a post showing the stitches I had. When I went back a week later to have my stitches removed, the nurse had a go at me for leaving it too late. And I was saying, what are you talking about? It was last week I had the surgery. And she said, there's no way. This skin has healed over the stitches far too quickly than it would do in a week. And I put it down to the bone broth, and the level of collagen that I had in my diet improved it in the first checkup. They said, oh, yeah, that'll be what it is. If you're eating bone broth, it's high in collagen. So it just shows you what amazing. And my skin now, I'm 59 this year. I'm 59 in August. And my skin's better than probably when I was in my late 20s and early 30s.
But do they tell you these things? If they know it, why do they not say if you want to heal more quickly? In fact, they used to say this years ago. If you want to heal more quickly, eat meat, after an operation, because that's the protein. You've had bits taken out often, or you need bits to heal up. It needs the protein and the fat to be able to do that healing. Vegetables, I'm sorry, are not going to do it for you.
Well, I remember my parents, when they used to do a roast dinner, they would have the beef dripping, they called it. And I never realized, really bone broth-ish. It's the juices from the meat.
Yeah.
And they would have that as a hot drink.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that was how we were supposed to. We were doing it all correct, but we've been thrown off target, as you know,
Yeah.
by big food, big pharma. So you're now eating a much reduced menu, if you will, of things that you're going to eat in a given day. And how do you find that? Because a lot of people say, well, isn't this very limiting? And I'd love you to talk about what food freedom means to you, Carl.
Okay, it is limiting. This not beat around the bush. When you saw the array of food I would eat previously to what I eat now, that's chalk and cheese. Totally different now. But for me, I listen to my body. When I'm hungry, my body tells me when to eat. I don't need my brain to tell me, my body tells me. And the classic was that there was about 6 months into being on carnivore, I had this cravings for fat, not meat, fat. And I would literally get a knife and slice some butter, and I'd eat it as butter, just a chunk of butter. Now, I went through about a couple of days of that, and then suddenly I didn't want it butter. So my body was telling me there was deficiency, that fat, whatever it was required. There'll be times where I don't really fancy a steak, and that's my body saying, you've got those nutrients you need. So I'll do some scrambled egg or a strip of bacon or whatever it is, because I think your body, we forget to listen to our own bodies. We've been so inundated with what we see on telly and the cinemas and all that about what we should eat, what we should want and all that, and we're almost reprogrammed. What this did, going down to the basics, for me, got me listening to me again and understanding why certain things were required for me. And I know that if I've skipped having much salt on my food and things like that, I noticed that my calves start to get a bit achy. And I realized, shit, I'm not having, sorry, sugar, no, wrong word. That's probably more of a swear word than what shit is, really, isn't it? On this channel. No, but I would then know that I'll take a few increased salt, or I'll take, electrolytes or something like that. But I don't have electrolytes every day. It's only when I'm feeling, my body's telling me I'm getting depleted in this area. I occasionally increase my magnesium because I'm conscious of what magnesium and zinc can do to the body. But you get most of that in meat.
Yeah. You get so much in meat, and we're just not taught that way.
Kent Carnivore says that every possible nutritional bit that you need is found in meat. If you have a fatty piece of meat, there is everything the body could possibly want in there. You can't say that about a vegetable.
No, you can't say that about all the vegetables. There's so many things missing, and they're continually finding more. We've known about B12 for a long time. You absolutely need that to thrive, but it's crazy how resilient the body is. When you don't feed it what it needs, it gets it from your bones, from your tissue. you start to eat yourself.
Well, the three ways the body gets energy: glucose first, because it's toxic to the body. So the body will burn glucose first. If you don't have the glucose, it then goes into ketones, and ketones comes from fat, right? You feel that. And if you haven't got that, it then turns to the muscle to create ketones. That's the only three ways the body can fuel itself. So if you take away the carbs and you give yourself the right level of fats to be able to go into fat adaptation and be able to create the ketones, that's it. It's the perfect energy. And I found my endurance. I used to do a few endurance things, as I'm sure you're well aware. That I did the London Marathon in a medieval suit of armor, one at 700-year-old suit of armor. I did the rat race, which is a 20-mile assault course over 200 assaults. So even though I was big, I was still good endurance, but I struggled. I struggled like hell on all of those. I think if I did it now, my performance would be 10 times better. And I'm eating less. I know I'm lighter, but I just think the energy levels I've got is from the ketones, not from the glucose.
And you really see that. I'm wearing a CGM at the moment, a continuous glucose monitor, and you really see that my lines are just rolling hill. Carl, have you done that? Have you worn a CGM?
No, I've never. That's something I should really look into. Actually, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, it's like night and day to when you're eating a mixed omnivore carbohydrate heavy diet. You don't get the spikes. It's just like rolling hills. It goes up
Wow,
a bit when you eat, and sometimes it hardly moves at all, depending how much fat you've got in the meal compared with
that's
protein.
incredible.
It really is. It's like this is how we're supposed to eat, Carl.
Well, you think about it. If you look at men when we were first around, we wouldn't eat 3 times a day. We would eat when they caught something to eat. Now that
Mm,
could be days apart.
mm,
That
mm.
could be they've done a big catch and they'll gorge on it because the meat in those days didn't have freezers, so it wouldn't keep. So, and it was our bodies have adapted to work in that way. I'm not saying that we go and hunt something and not eat for a few days, but all I'm saying is we can mimic that kind of cycle of eating because that's what our bodies are designed to do, not designed to go down to McDonald's or KFC or Burger King or wherever it is and have that in between something else. Food is too convenient. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the big food companies want us to eat fat because it's addictive. So therefore they get more of their sales. And the pharmaceuticals want that to go on because they get the benefit because we've gone to this pop and pill culture. People will find the quick fix rather than, carnivore's not easy, but it's certainly not difficult. And it's a lot safer than taking drugs.
And it's a lot easier than being really sick.
Yeah.
You had cancer, you were
Yeah.
depressed, you were obese, you had sleep
Yeah.
apnea, dizzy spells, blood pressure. All of this is not making you feel good.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. And there is a lot of research out there now that cancer needs glucose
Yeah.
to continue its growth. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a cancer expert or anything. I've only gone from what I've experienced myself, but I'm very confident on the diet I've got. I won't get a return of the melanoma that I had. I'm
Yeah.
very confident. Can't say that 100% because no one knows what's around the corner.
I agree. There's lots of research. That's one of the reasons why people with diabetes have a much lower life expectancy, because every single chronic disease are worse outcomes if you've got high blood sugar, which is what diabetes is. So I think with cancer, it's complex, and some cancers there's a very close relationship with the sugar. And other cancers, there are many other things that are going in.
Yeah.
So decreasing the sugar will help in most cancers, but in some cancers, it's not enough to sort of get things back. Yeah, it's very interesting that it's the root of so many things. Let's talk about hormones for a minute, because what we've seen is reducing birth rates. We've seen a lot of increase in erectile dysfunction, for example. We've seen men have much lower testosterone. We've seen women having many hormonal issues. Have you noticed changes in your hormonal status since you started on the carnivore?
Very much. Twofold. One, as I mentioned, I might be because I had the job and all that as well, but I had a very stressful situation and I was very stressed a lot. I am one of the most chilled out people you'll ever meet now. I am really relaxed and comfortable. There could be a combination of other things. But the other thing is, without being too crude about this, obviously, but once I was on the carnivore and I was waking up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't roll out of bed because I was awake in more areas than most. And that side of it, I'm 59 years old, and I would say I'm much more, in terms of sex drive, much more active than I probably was 5 years earlier. And I've put that down to the weight, the obesity, the tiredness as well. But I do feel that that hormone change in me has made me much more interested.
That's all I wanted to hear, because I think it's so important for us to talk about this, because people don't realize if a guy is struggling in this area, just changing the way you eat, getting into that steak, it makes sense, guy. I think that, the expression red-blooded male. And if you remember when the Kellogg's cornflakes people, the Seventh-day Adventists,
Yes.
go on.
Well, that's why they are very prominent at promotion vegan, because they see what eating meat did to men. They saw that as evil, that a man being sexually charged. They were very, very keen to promote the vegan side of it because they wanted to stamp out what they saw as the evil that meat bring, which was the increase in sexual activity that men had. They wanted to suppress it.
Yeah. So they've known this for hundreds of years. And I put a challenge out there to any guy who's watching this, who thinks maybe this is an issue, maybe your testosterone's a bit lower than you would like it to be. Maybe that motivation and zest for life is not there, because testosterone is not just about a sexual thing. And of course, it's for men and women. But for men especially, I think it's a great thing to try, because you can just try this for 21 days, 90 days, and see what is the impact for you. Are you able to roll out of bed or not?
Yeah. Honestly, and what people will be surprised at, for me, I can only speak from my experiences, how quickly it changed. It wasn't over months, it was in weeks. And, realistically, I would say within the second week, I was starting to think, hello, good morning.
Yeah.
That's not being crude, but it impacted me that quickly.
Yeah, it's just the truth. And some of the vegan propagandists try to make out that it's opposite. And we know that vegetables ain't doing it.
No. Look, I've got no problem with vegans per se, because a vegan is not eating processed foods. I think a lot of the problem is ultra processed foods and what's hidden in these processed foods. If someone has multiple ingredients, half of which you can't announce, then why the hell are we putting it in our bodies? Where vegan is the same, although they have sauces and things like that. But if you go down to real whole foods, like carnivores would be meat and butter and eggs, and you know what's in there, that has got to be a lot better than having something in a pack with a load of these and whatever numbers on there, is far, far superior. So I've got no issue with vegans like that. In my opinion, they've made the wrong choice, because I tried veganism. I was nearly 6 months on a vegan. I lost a bit of weight, but God almighty, I was hungry. I probably ate more being a vegan than I did when I was on the Western diet as such. So it just didn't work for me. This is the perfect diet for me. I mentioned before, I liked steaks before, so there's no hardship for me eating steaks. I see people eating sweets, crisps, chocolate. I don't sit there thinking, oh, I'd love a bit of that. I don't. Honestly, I don't want it. Got no interest in it.
That's great. I slightly feel a bit stronger against vegan. I went vegetarian, I went vegan. But the reason why I don't think it's good, even if you're eating real foods on a vegan diet, you're not eating the essential foods, essential amino acids, i.e. proteins, essential fatty acids. They're called essential for a reason. Your diet has to be mainly carbohydrate if you're eating a vegan diet. And that is not good for us. Our bodies are not designed to deal with a lot of sugar, and all carbohydrates absorb are done as sugar. So if we know that biologically as animals, we need protein and fat, any diet that does not prioritize protein and animal fat, it cannot be the healthiest diets for humans. You're just getting by. You're only eating.
And quite often vegans have to have supplements to counteract that. You don't necessarily need supplements on the carnivore diet. And the other point I will add about plants is, if you look at the top addictions, So you talk about alcoholism, drug addiction, sugar addiction, smoking. They've all got one common thing. They're all plants. They're from an origin of a plant. I don't recall anyone being addicted to steak.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the freedom comes from. That's where the freedom comes from, Carl. Carl, it's been so good to have you on and hear your story. We didn't even get onto your feet.
Yeah, I used to be size 14 stroke 15 feet, right? I had very large feet, and obviously to get anything half decent, I either had to have the shoes made or I have to go to a store called Big and Small, which would do specialized in out of gauge people, let's say. And that was it. So I quite often used to have footwear that someone like Frankenstein would probably wear rather than the fashionable bit. Amazingly, to my absolute surprise, within about 6 months, my feet went from a size 14 stroke 15 because they're wide, and I now fit comfortably in a size 12. So I can now buy fashionable shoes at a reasonable price. So that's a hidden benefit to me. It's probably saved me a two or £300 a pair of shoes at a time.
Yeah, no, and that you were saying as well, a lot of inflammation had gone
Yeah.
from the feet.
Yeah, because obviously did judo, you used to do a lot of things like ankle sweeps, so you get damage to your joints. And I think over a period of time, that damage obviously was a weak point for inflammation, etc. And so my feet were always big. I always had achy feet and sore feet and various bits and pieces. I hadn't thought about that until I just said, no, but the last 2 years, I can't think of me ever having achy feet. And again, my feet have now shrunk. So that inflammation that I had in those areas have all gone.
Yeah, and that again is another way of stopping chronic disease before it starts, because your body is all cleaning up, the inflammation has gone down, it's working optimally. It's able to do things that previously it wouldn't have had the capacity to be able to do.
100%.
Before we leave today, I think it's really important that we talk about your Primal Lifestyle YouTube channel.
Okay.
On there, you've got some amazing videos. I watched one with your nephew and his transformation, but also you've got some for people who are new to this. So tell us a little bit more about what we can find over at Primal Lifestyle.
Well, I was so impressed with the discovery that I had. I wanted to share and get the message out there. So I set up originally it was called Carnivore Nation, but then I realized it was quite a narrow area focus, and I wanted to include keto and paleo as well. So I rebranded it as Primal Lifestyle. So it was covering anything on that sort of area. And it's a mix of interviews of people and their stories and their discoveries, so people can find out how other people got on. And the other part is more investigative in terms of research and papers. I'm self-funding myself doing a PhD around this whole primal lifestyle. So I did quite a lot of investigating work into statins and into fat adaptation and all that. So every now and then I'll chuck out some of the findings that I've had from specific papers and put that out there. So the primal lifestyle is that. And then I got a lot of requests of saying, can you do a 101 on carnivore? So I've done a few there where I'm doing tips and advice of people how to, if they want to go carnivore, and from my experiences, what I wouldn't do now and what I would do in the future in terms of transition and all that. So I've done a few of those. And then as I was coming up to my 2 years, as I said, I decided to do something a bit different. Through my business, I do a bit of playing with AI and content creation. So I decided to get some images of myself from 2 years ago. Using AI, brought them to life, and I then managed to create an interview of myself with myself from 2 years ago. Bit of tongue in cheek, bit of fun, but also getting over some key points of what I discovered and all that. And amazingly, it's only been up 2 days and I've had over 1,000 views. So I'm quite pleased with the success of that. Probably made a rod for my own back now, but I'm focusing on doing stuff, promoting the Great British Meetup as well. So I'll be doing that a bit more stuff on that. But yeah, so it's a mixture of interviews. I've did some brilliant interviews recently with a guy who's got stage 4 GIST cancer. He had all the chemo. His health was declining. He decided personally to make a decision to come off the chemo, tried various different diets, discovered the carnivore. And to date, he has shrunk his tumors internally. Even his own oncologist can't believe the results, and they're now monitoring him. And he's a top bloke. That's on there. I did another guy that actually tried one of the slimming injections, found out that it was causing issues in his liver. He's now gone carnivore, and you see his 2 pictures. They're amazing. So there's so many great stories. I'm just trying to help people get them out there so people can be informed and make their own decisions. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional in it. But the idea is I want to inform people so they can make informed decisions.
I think the personal stories are everything, because even though you say I'm not a doctor, people have been going to their doctor sometimes for 10, 20 years, trying to get their blood sugar in order. You know, if the doctors were doing what, for example, you're doing, Carl, 25 people per day have their hands, feet, toes, fingers amputated every day in the UK right now, here in 2025. And
Yep.
that would be happening if
I
doctors were doing their...
Yeah, I agree with that. In defense of the doctors, from my knowledge of what I've done for my investigating work, when a general GP does his training, they do, in their 3 years or 4 years of training, they have 1 day on nutrition. 1 day. Now, that's not the doctor's fault. I think that's the overall way we're doing it. Now, I'm hoping with Animal and with Helping Humanity and all these messages, and with JFK now through Donald Trump's side. I'm not into politics. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, whatever, but him bringing JFK in, who is smashing those drugs. Hopefully, Britain will follow what suddenly America finds. They're trying to get rid of the ultra processed foods and the additives in the foods and all that. That can only be good because we tend to follow dietary, what America does. And I think the growth of the carnivore, not just the carnivore, the keto movement is getting so much stronger now that eventually the health practitioners have got to take note. George is a classic. His own doctors couldn't believe the results he got. I talked to my doctor. I haven't been to my doctor, well, apart from the cancer checkups, I've not been to a doctor for any need to go there. But the conversations I've had with friends that are doctors, they still kind of think, well, I don't really think this is a good thing. And I'm like, hang on a minute, look at me. I've not got any of the problems. I don't get out of breath going upstairs. I don't, have any issues. I don't need statins. I don't need to go on insulin. Why is it not a good thing? And they kind of went, well, yeah. And it's that brainwashing, or the old medicine, as I call, still there. Ansel Keys has got so much to answer for. And that's going back to the 1950s. And we're still doing medicine based on that, which has been proved subsequently as being fake information. His 7 countries study was actually 20. But he just cherry picked to make it fit his hypothesis. If you look deep enough, we don't even have to look deep. If you just look a bit, you will find there's a lot of question marks over some of the things we're being told. Statin is the most sold drug in the world. Now, there is a need for statins. Certain people with a certain issue, statins will help. But 98% of the people on statins don't need to be on statins, but the drug companies want on there because it's profitable for them. Sorry, I'll get off my high horse now.
It's brilliant, the statins. It's absolutely ridiculous. And do you know what? The benefit of statins was tested, and you get a few days of life expectancy, even the people who benefit. So really, because of the downside, because statins are reducing your cholesterol, and we need cholesterol for our brain health, for our hormonal health, for our health, people on statins get dementia at a higher rate. So the downside far outweigh any minimal upside, even for the few 2% of people who can benefit.
Well, I 100% agree with that theory because, and I can say from personal experience, my father was a very active man. He was one of the strongest people I ever knew, and I was pretty fit for my judo in those days, and he was still a very strong guy. He was such an intelligent guy. He used to do really position stuff in engineering and all sorts of stuff. I remember as a kid, used to be watching Mastermind. He did answer most of the questions before the question was finished. He was a very bright guy. He had a thrombosis that went through his lung, which caused a shock, which triggered him going on to diabetes. They then discovered he had high cholesterol, so they put him on a statin. And within a space of no more than probably 10 years, I watched in front of my own eyes my father go from this amazing guy to the shadow of the man and a total stranger to me because his dementia just took over. His health just declined. He was so small and weak and thin when he was such an ox of a man before. And I'm absolutely convinced the low-fat diet, the statins he was put on, increased the speed of his life ending to what he would have done. And interesting enough, there's 2 or 3 studies out there now that people that live in their 90s and beyond all are discovered with high cholesterol. Why is that? Because they've got the hormones, their body's able to cope with it, and they can do it. So I think the whole low cholesterol thing is a complete farce, and it's been proven now that cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease. There's a combination of things that cholesterol could be a contributor, but is not the reason that it's always been publicized for. So I'm getting on my high horse again.
Oh, I love it when you're on your high horse, Carl. I think that's a great place to end this talk today. Is there anything that you just want to leave people with as we are closing today, Carl?
All I'm saying is you don't have to believe me, but go and research. Go and do your own research. See what's out there, and then make an informed decision. You will be surprised.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching and for listening. Thank you, Carl, for being here. I must say to you, if you're in the UK, do join us at the Great British Meetup on the 2nd of August. It will be a good time. And if you're just thinking about this way of eating, could be life-changing, health transforming too. And if you're interested in more UK primal sort of keto type events, there is also a Facebook group where we convene them. It's called the UK Metabolic Hub event group. I'll put the link below. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
So thank you. And I will see you next week, sexy people. Bye for now.